Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime, and I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. And today we're going to talk about math and Rick and Morty. Let's get into it. So, if you haven't seen the show or yet or not up to date, you can assume that there will be spoilers ahead. I will try to not get too many out there, but you never know. So if you want to be safe, you shouldn't watch this yet. But if you don't care or you're up to date, go for it. So let's get into it. Here's how I see this video going. I want to talk about like how math is used in Rick and Morty like within their universe, but only a little bit. I'm more interested in how it's used in that meta sense, which I think is appropriate because it's a pretty meta show. And also, like I feel like that's more interesting to me, at least for this. But they all tie together, like all the things tie together. So we're gonna get into it. So let's start with like the universe itself and get that out of the way, and then kind of use that to start talking about other parts. Like within the universe, math is used in a number of ways. Like for starters, like Rick is a man of science. He's all about that math. He's all about that science and all about using that to do and say crazy things. And so math is used in pretty much everything that Rick does, at least like on a level that we're used to. Because if you've been watching some of my other videos, I'm big on saying that, hey, there's academic math, like a math in that academic sense, and there's math on that universal level. And math on a universal level is like it's what's happening regardless of whether we're saying it's happening or not. It's always been there. It's there before us. It'll be there after us. For academic math, like it's like, hey, we're learning this or we're learning that so that we can talk about what the universe is doing. So we can say something about the past, the present, the future, and so on and so forth. So in the regards of the more academic math, that's used more directly by Rick, and there's actually a math teacher in the show, and that's cool. And also, but on a more universal sense, all characters are using it, right? They're using it at their jobs. They're using it to walk. They're using it to make this or make that. They're using it in their everyday lives, and I think that's cool. But going further, Rick and Morty is a comedy, right? It's an animated sitcom, sci-fi adventure sort of deal. And as far as the comedy goes, there's so many ways that you can tell a joke, but I do believe there is a basic formula for it, and that formula has so much nuance that you can put into it. Because for me, it's like setup punchline equals joke, and there's so many layers to that, right? Because you could have several parts of a setup. You could have a punchline that you didn't think was a punchline be the punchline, right? There's so many different ways that you could express that, right? And then you could take that formula and it varies how you use it, medium to medium, right? Because how you tell a joke in a book, how you tell it in a movie, a TV show, a video game, it all varies. And I'd argue that it varies within those realms too, because take a TV show, right? You have a sitcom versus a animated sitcom versus a sketch show, right? Math is being used in all of those, but in different ways, right? And I say that because with Rick and Morty, for instance, right? Math is going to be used differently in there than it would be like a live action, right? You have different constraints on it. And the same could be said for it being different in a sketch show, because with a sketch show, right, you have a series of sketches, you only have like maybe a half an hour or an hour to do it, depending on what type of show it is, and so you have to construct these scenes accordingly, or sketches accordingly. But we're gonna focus on Rick and Morty, and their whole deal. So they're an animated sitcom. They only get these half an hour episodes, and they usually are 10 episodes a season, with years being between them, which gets interesting. Animation takes time, and planning and plotting takes time. But what I find fascinating is when they do pull it all together, right? That story and how that plays out. There's math and all that. And I think one of the fascinating things that happened with season 4 is it was in some ways kind of a mess. The show was kind of figuring themselves out. Because 3 seasons in, they were doing really well, and Adult Swim was like, hey, we're gonna give you 70 more episodes. You're good for that. And for the creators, Dan Harmon, Justin Roiland, and really everyone else who would be on their team, why on earth would they turn it down, right? That's job security, right? But then the question becomes well, how do we use the time that's given to us, right? And these 70 episodes that come, what do we want this to be? And I feel like season 4 was plotting that out. And right now, at the time of this recording, they seem to have gotten over that hump, and having a good balance of things, right? And we're 5 seasons in, and so far, like I've been really enjoying the 5th season. It's been hilarious. But that being said, right? So math plays a role in the story because you're like, well, hey, I want to tell a story, and I have like a certain amount of minutes and a certain amount of episodes to do it in, and then I have a certain amount of jokes that I want to tell in an episode. And Rick and Morty, they hit you hard, they hit you fast, they hit you with a lot of jokes. And there's math in all that. And I think that's impressive because it's like, they got like verbal jokes, like, ongoing jokes where it's like, hey, they may have said something in the beginning of the episode and it comes back later. They have visual gags. They have so much that like contributes to their particular brand of humor. And there's math in all of it. And there's math in the animation. And that's incredible because, like, well, hey, we're building up these worlds. Like, we want to make sure these characters are proportional to each other, to these objects. If they have like some sort of fight, they want to make sure that's coordinated. And then just like the animation itself to make all that happen, there's a lot of math in it, right? Because you're considering physics, you're considering all the programming that goes into it, and there's a lot of math and all that. And animating could take a lot of time to get like a product that's going to take, like the product would take far less time to view than it would to create, right? And so they're trying to like not waste time. They're going through a million ideas. They're going through different writers. They have to have like a lot together, right? And when it comes to like forming an episode, making a season, there's a lot of logistics involved. I mean, that there's a lot of math in that. And Rick and Morty makes money. There's math in that. And so for them, it's like it's got to be tricky because like they want to do their own thing, right? But they also want to keep on having that money, but they don't want to like pander to fans. And they don't want to contribute to certain fans in the Rick and Morty community. So it's like, well, what do? So they got to try their best with that. Like, they got to figure out what kind of story they want to tell. And like I said, they seem to figure it out because it's like it was kind of between like, hey, do we want to tell more canon stories or do we want to tell like more stories where it's like unrelated? It's like, what do we want to do? And I feel like it could be tough from a writing standpoint and a mathematical standpoint because it's like, well, hey, how's this going to work day in, day out? Or are we going to vary? And like I said, I feel like they came in for season 5 strong. So I'm curious to see where they go with it. I don't want this to be a super long video, and I don't want to start repeating points too much. But I guess like a good way to sum things up are, when it comes to Rick and Morty, there is a lot of math in that world, like within the universe of the show, or different universes within the show. Because there's different dimensions and different numbers to label those dimensions, and then there's math in that. But there's math in the day-to-day activities that go on in the structure of that multiverse. There's math and like the science that's going on, but like also just everything in that show. And then like on that larger level, it's like there's math that goes into fitting a certain story within that half an hour or so framework, which is always shorter because of commercials. But the idea is like, it ends up being about 20 minutes. And it's like, okay, so what can we fit in here? And it's like, hey, we have our A story, we have our B story, we have all these going together and coming together like that. So it's like you have math and all of that. You have math and the money it takes to produce the show, and you have math and the money that you get out of the merchandising, out of paying all your workers. There's math in the animation. There's math in the worlds that animation makes. There's math in the writing. There's math everywhere, and that's not a bad thing. So that being said, I enjoy Rick and Morty. It's a good show. Not every episode is gonna hit. Not every joke is gonna hit. There's definitely some times where I'm like, I feel like they didn't want there, and I'm not on board with it. But that kind of comes with the territory with comedy. It's kind of tricky, But overall, I enjoy it. I feel like they tried some pretty innovative stuff and they succeed. And season 5, I'm enjoying it. I hope it continues. And if there is someone out there who maybe didn't enjoy it, I ask you to give it another chance. Like, I like the show and I like the current season. And I hope that you got something out of this video and that you could see the math in Rick and Morty, both inside the universe and out. That being said, I'll see you in the next one. Professor Prime out.